might have noticed that the title of my sermon that is projected there is different from what you see in our bulletin. In fact, it is the same. I just have to change the title, because when I was about to put there the title, which is written in your bulletin, which is like speed addicts, right? When I was about to put it out there, outside, with my name, I stopped. I said, I don't think this is going to be a good words to put outside. So I changed it. I changed it to hurry sickness. But it's basically the same. So the title of my sermon today is Hurry Sickness. Hurry Sickness. The word hurry, in other words, is busy, right? Busy. Now the question that I would like to throw at you is, how often do you hear this word, busy? How often do you hear this every day? Maybe from other person, or from other people, or from you using the same word. How often do you hear this? Let me tell you, the word busy is always being used. Busy, right? It could be, from a person that is in front of you talking to you, especially when you ask, how is that person doing? And that person would tell you, oh boy, it's so busy. It's so busy, right? At home, at work, when you meet this person in the department store, everywhere. You would always hear this. And sometimes we even use that same word, right? Right? When someone asks the same question to us, how are you, my friend? Sometimes we also use this word, man, I'm so busy. And the thing is, sometimes we use the word just to project that we are doing something, even though we're not doing anything, right? I'm so guilty of that. Because, I want to project that, oh man, I'm busy, I'm doing something, When someone asks me, oh boy, I'm so exhausted because, man, my schedule this week is so busy at school, in church. I'm busy, right? And one reason why we use that word busy is because the opposite of being busy is what? Lazy. And if someone asks you, how are you doing? You cannot just say that, oh boy, life is so good, I'm not doing anything. You cannot just say that, right? Of course, you have to pretend something that you're doing something, right? Right? So, because the opposite of that is lazy. Now listen to this. Dallas Willard once said, busy, or in other words, hurry, as the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. Can you guys believe that? Hurry, or being busy, is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. And said that you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. How many of you feel that a lot of time you are always in a hurry? Come on. I'm one of them. Let's be honest. I'm one of them. We're always in a hurry. We're always on a go, right? So, if you look at it, hurry is one big issue, that is a problem of a lot of Christians. But as you can see, hurry is the main issue underneath so many other issues. What's the result of being busy and hurrying all the time? Let me name some. Number one in the list is chronic anger, right? If you are busy all the time, the result of this is, the tendency is you have this tendency to get angry. Chronic anger. What else? Outrage culture. Look at the culture where we are, right? Especially when you're driving, you know, if you make a little mistake, the driver next to you or behind you or in front of you would be upset right away, and there will be what? An outrage, right? Outrage culture. What else? Low-grade anxiety. The rise of suicide. These are just a result of being busy or hurrying all the time. What else? Illness, right? What else? Secularism, violence, materialism, digital distraction, loneliness, exhaustion, burnout, you name it. There's a lot of things. And if you look at this, all of these issues that I mentioned, what's underneath all of these issues is what? That main issue of being what? Busy, hurry. All right? Carl Jung, the psychiatrist who coined the language of extrovert and introvert, once said that hurry is not of the devil. It is the devil. Those are very strong words, right? Hurry is the devil itself, right? Because if you come to define the word hurry, I have two definitions of the word hurry here. The first one is a behavior pattern characterized by continual rushing and anxiousness. An overwhelming and continual sense of urgency. Have you guys experienced that? If you experience that, man, your life is always in a rush. The second definition, a malaise in which a person feels chronically short of time and so tends to perform every task faster and to get flustered when encouraging any kind of delay. Have you experienced it? You know, in one day, you feel like your day is so short and you wish that that day has 48 hours? Have you feel that way? You begin saying, I wish there's like 40 hours in a day because my day is so short. I have a lot of things to do. Have you guys experienced that? All of us have experienced that, right? If you have experienced that, my dear friends, that means that it is only one of the signs that your life is in a hurry. Well, there are two types of hurrying or being busy. All right? Let's try to define it. You know, there's two types of being busy. The first one is being busy of things that matter. All right? This is the good, busy thing. All right? First is you have a lot of things to do. But you are not wasting your life on something that is not important. Okay? The life you are giving away is for something that matters. So please, don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to say here to really move slow. All right? I'm not trying to say that. But let me explain, what I mean by having hurry as a big problem, especially in the life of a lot of Christians. When it comes to, hurrying or moving fast, there's always room for that in our life. But yet, when it becomes the pathological busyness, which is the second type of being busy, this is what we call the problem. This is when the problem starts, right? Because it says here, there's another type of busyness called pathological busyness, where the problem is you don't have a lot of things to do, but you have too much to do. That's a problem, right? Not the fact that you have a lot of things, but you have too much things to do. Right? And that is the pathological busyness. So the only solution, if you are in this situation, the only solution is to cram it all in and speed up your mind, your body, and your relationships to get it done before the end of the day. If you're always cramming, if you're always hurrying, if you're always trying to put things together in one day, because for you, you know, your day is not enough, then you are experiencing this what we call pathological busyness. In a survey conducted by Dr. Michael Cigarile, a professor of management at Charleston University School of Business, he discovered what he calls a vicious cycle prompted by cultural conformity. And this is what he said. It may be the case that, number one, Christians are assimilating a culture of busyness, hurry, and overload, which leads to, number two, God, listen to this folks, becoming more marginalized in Christians' lives. Remember, this is a cycle, right? Which leads to, number three, a deteriorating relationship with God, which leads to, number four, Christians becoming even more vulnerable to adopting secular assumptions about how to live, which leads to, number five, more conformity to a culture of busyness, hurry, and overload. And then he said, the cycle begins again. So that's a cycle. You know, if we can look back, the first one is you are assimilating a culture of busyness. You know, first you get exposed to that type of life. Right? You were not like that before. You get exposed to that type of life of being fast-paced, right? Next, God became marginalized in Christians' lives. That's the second one. Your mind is occupied, right? Is occupied. And you know, God is not the priority anymore because you tend to go with that flow of being busy, always being in a hurry. And the third one is relationship with God deteriorates. Since you are not spending time with God, your relationship with Him will deteriorate because He's not your priority anymore. And this one will lead to what? You becoming more vulnerable to adopt that type of life. And as a result of this cycle, folks, that type of life of being always in a hurry becomes your way of life. It becomes your new normal. Your new normal. You know what? Those of you who grew up in the Philippines, you can see a big difference between the life back in the Philippines and the life here in America. When I got here in America, one of my friends called me and he told me, "Melvin, my friend, welcome to USA, United States of America." Tell me if I am lying to you. It's only here in Western folks, countries in West, right? Compare our life to other countries in Asia, in Africa. You know, life in America is very stressful because you're always fast-paced. You're always in a hurry, right? You're always in a hurry. Listen to this. There's 10 signs that you are moving too fast. Okay? Okay, let's get real here, folks. All right? Because I know that we are all we are all guilty of this. If not the whole time, at least, sometimes. All right? So there are 10 signs, according to Ruth Haley Barton, that you are moving too fast. The first sign is you being irritable. Irritability. All right? Well, if you notice that you are irritable, man, you might be moving too fast. You need to slow down a little bit. The second one is hypersensitivity. If you are so sensitive, maybe you are moving too fast. One of the signs, one of the 10 signs, according to Ruth Haley, Barton. The third one is restlessness. Right? When you say restlessness, you try to rest. You try to sleep, but you couldn't really rest. Because you want to keep your body is used to what? Keeping on moving forward, doing something. You couldn't rest. You need to slow down because your life is in a hurry, right? Next one is compulsive overworking. Compulsive overworking, right? You're working non-stop, right? Have you seen someone like that? And you told your friend, hey, my friend, can you stop? You know, it's your day off and you just don't even sit down at home and just rest. You know, we have people like this, right? And sometimes we're guilty of the same thing, right? That person must stop and slow down, right? Next, emotional numbness. Emotional numbness. It's hard for you to get attached emotionally, right? Because you're so numbed, right? You're so numbed. You know, people are crying already, and you are still what? You know, especially when talking about being so emotional. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people. Every time we watch something, with my family, Saturday night we always watch a movie at home. And sometimes, like ladies, they love watching drama and all of this romance, and some this love story doesn't always have a happy ending, right? Right, husbands? Sometimes we just have to be there to support our wife, right? Right? We've experienced that. But yet we get carried along, right? And when especially when the ending is not really good, sometimes we get carried away emotionally. We cry. And I'm one of those people. But yet those people who are always in a hurry, everybody is already crying in the room and you're just like this, as if nothing is going on. Right? Because it's hard for you to connect emotionally, right? Next, escapist behaviors, right? What's escapist behavior? You tend to just watch TV all day, and you tend to it's like excessive social media usage. If you are one of those people, maybe you need to slow down because this is one of the signs that your life is moving too fast. Next, disconnected from identity or calling. Sometimes you don't even know who you are. You don't know your purpose. You don't know your goals. Because you are so busy, you don't have the time to reflect, assess your life, in which direction you're going. You need to slow down. What else? Not able to attend to basic human needs like sleeping, exercise, or eating. Because you're always doing something. Next, hoarding energy. I'm trying to understand what hoarding energy is. Do you guys understand what it means? You're trying to hoard your energy. Maybe you don't want to. I don't know how to explain it well, but it's part. It's part of these 10 signs. Let's jump to the next one. Since I don't know how to explain well the number 9, let's go to the next one, which is the 10th one. This is slippage in spiritual practices. Disciplines become less and less frequent. Let's try to talk about what's going on in your daily lives. Let me give you a scenario here. You went to Costco. You're pushing your cart, right? You're ready to check out. And you see cashier number 1, number 2, now up to 10. Which cashier do you go? On the longest or the shortest? The shortest. You are driving. You're approaching a traffic light, right? And there are 3 lanes. You're in the middle lane. And you see that cars on your right and left are short. Where do you stay? Do you stay in your lane or you move and change your lane? You change your lane. The truth, folks, is we are always in a hurry. We are always in a hurry, It's funny because Friday morning, after I dropped off my kids to school, I went straight to Stater Brothers to grab a bouquet of flowers because I need to give it to someone at home that got upset with me. You try to figure out who that person is. All the kids are in school. So I went to Stater Brothers, grabbed the best bouquet of flowers. I was holding it. I went straight to the cashier. And guess what? Which cashier do you think I went to? To the shortest. And in front of me was an old lady. She's white. And in front of her, she has this bunch of goods that she got, like, food, in a cart. And I was behind her, and guess what she told me? She told me, my son, you go ahead. You only have one bouquet of flower, and I have a bunch. You know what? I spend all my life always being in a hurry. I'm like, ooh, that's my sermon. Right? I spent all my life always being in a hurry. Now I learned to slow down. I almost tell her, of course I said, thank you, Mom, but I almost tell her, Mom, that's my sermon tomorrow. Please come to my church. Right? And to make the long story short, I went home. I bring the bouquet of flower to the person that got upset with me, and we're okay now. All right. Folks, we're always in a hurry, and a lot of times we try to multitask, doing a lot of tasks at the same time, that most of the time we forget to do one of the tasks, right? Based from what we have studied last time, that you and I are not wired to be multitaskers. You remember that sermon of mine? You are not wired to be like that. We are wired to just be doing one thing at a time. Only a small percentage of people can do that. And the bad news is, I don't think we're part of them. Right? Maybe one or two of you guys, but majority of us are not part of it, right? So, yeah, those are the 10 signs that we are moving too fast. According to Ronald Rollheiser on being busy, this is what he said. Today, a number of historical circumstances are blindly flowing together and accidentally conspiring to produce a climate within which it is difficult not just to think about God or to pray, but simply to have any interior depth whatsoever. We, for every kind of reason, good and bad, are distracting ourselves into spiritual oblivion. By the way, the word oblivion means is a state of being unaware or unconscious of what's going on. And I continue to read, it is not what we have anything against God, death, and spirit. We would like this. Listen to this very carefully, folks. I love this part of the statement. It is not that we have anything against God, death, and spirit. He said, we would like all of this. But it is just that we are habitually too preoccupied to have any of these show up on our radar screens. We are busy than bad. More distracted than spiritual. And more interested in the movie theater, the sports stadium, and the shopping mall, and the fantasy, hey ladies, shopping mall, right? And the fantasy life they produce in us than we are in church. Pathological busyness, distraction, and restlessness are major blocks today within our spiritual lives. So if we can sum it up, folks, my reaction to this, basically, when I hear this, when I read this, it's like, boom! There you go! Right? There you go! So if you can hear it, folks, the problem is not that people are not interested about Christ. A lot of people today are still interested with Christ. The problem is not that people are bad, but the problem is our mind is too busy. Our mind is always occupied with a lot of things that are in the world. And as a result of this, we are not prioritizing God anymore because we don't have time with Him. According to John Ortberg, he suggests, hurry is not just a disordered schedule. Hurry is a disordered heart. Of course, that's the problem. But we're not going to stay there, right? We have to understand and we have to learn Jesus' way of life. We need to learn from Jesus, right? We need to learn from Jesus. Open your Bibles with me. I did not project it there. To Mark chapter 1, verses 32 to 39. Then I'm going to ask you a question after we read this one. Chapter 1, 32 to 39. I read. At evening, when the sun had set, they brought to him all who were sick and those who were demon-possessed. And the whole city was gathered together at the door. Then he healed many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. And he did not allow the demons to speak because they knew him. Now in the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, he went out and departed to a solitary place. And there he prayed. And watch out, folks. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." But he said to them, "Let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also, because for this purpose I have come forth." And he was preaching in the synagogues throughout all Galilee and casting out demons. Now that we read that story, my question is, how would you describe Jesus in this story in relation to what we are talking about? How would you describe Jesus in one word in that story? Anyone? Let's try to put it in a real situation. Let's say you were the disciples. All right? Okay, let's just use a church setting. There's an evangelism going on. A lot of activities going on in the church. Pastor Ravelo and I, we're just here, somewhere, praying, probably meditating or studying. Then you were looking for us, you couldn't not find us. A lot of people were looking for us. Then when you found us, you said, "Pastors, where were you? How come you're just in your room? You're not doing anything?" And our answer to you folks is, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. Let's go somewhere. Let's go to Kukas and eat something. That is basically the situation. If you were the disciple, you might have been upset with Jesus, right? But if I can describe Jesus in this particular situation, the word that came to my mind is the word relax. Jesus was so relaxed, right? Jesus was so relaxed. But if you're going to study his whole life in the 4 Gospels, you can find Jesus always being like that. The first good example is, the story after waiting 30 years to begin his ministry. His first ministry act was to follow the Spirit into 40 days into the wilderness. Can you imagine the feeling of Jesus? He was so excited to start his ministry and to do his purpose. But yet, after his baptism, after he was anointed to be the Messiah, in his baptism, the Spirit said, "Come follow me. I'm going to take you to the wilderness for 40 days for you to fast." If you were Jesus, how would you react? Maybe you would say, "Man, I need to do this. This is God's work. I have to finish it. This is the very reason why I'm here." But Jesus went there. And there he was tempted. The second one is what? His own brothers urged him to do some publicity if he wanted to be a public figure. But Jesus did not bite. Right? Another one. The story of Jairus. Remember? Jairus met Jesus and he said, "Come, hurry. My daughter is dying." And on his way, he was interrupted by this bleeding woman. Can you imagine the feeling of Jairus? Right? The feeling of Jairus said, my daughter is dying and here comes Jesus not doing anything, as if he was not in a hurry. How come he's like that? The story of Jesus in Lazarus, right? When Lazarus died, you know, he delayed his coming. He delayed his coming for 2 days until Lazarus died. His sense of timing often puzzled those around him. And if you look back at the story of Jesus when he was tempted, you know, what happened during that wilderness day, you know, Jesus fasted and he faced temptations orchestrated by the devil. But if you come to look at it, if you look at the situation, my dear brothers and sisters, the essence of it was to provoke Jesus to hurry to get for himself what the Father had promised to provide. Right? During the temptation, the devil is provoking Jesus to take the shortcut and to make him hurry in order for him to get the job done. Right? But Jesus is always, I don't want to call it slow, but Jesus is always relaxed or lax, right? Because he knows that his time is coming. If you talk about the great commandments, the 2 greatest commandments is to love God and to love others, right? The commandment is not, you know, get more things done, my dear brothers and sisters. That is not the command to you and to me by God. Not to get a lot of things done, right? But to love him with our whole energies, capacities, and passions, and to extend that love to others. That's why the great commandment is what? To love God. The vertical loving. And to love others, the horizontal loving. That is the love. That is the command. Not to finish the work right away. Right? Because when you talk about loving, love is not rust. Right? Love is not rust. Love, you know, this classic quote that we often, you know, hear growing up. Love is spelled what? Come on, tell me. You've heard this many times. Love is spelled what? T-I-M-E. The small kids are like, what are you talking about, Pastor? That's not how you spell love. Because what I just spelled is what? T-I-M-E is what? Time. So that means that when you say love, you need to take time. You need to spend time. You cannot rush love. And this is basically the main essence of our study. That's why God is telling us to slow down in order for you and for me to be able to express that love. Because you cannot express love when you are in a hurry. The first trait Paul mentioned when he described love in that famous chapter of his in 1 Corinthians 13 is what? Love is what? Patient. Love is patient. And when you talk about being patient, you know, you don't do it in a hurry. Right? You don't do it in a hurry. Patience is an inherent virtue, and it's one of the virtues we have the hardest time with, you know? It's one of the things that we are having hard time. According to Vincent Paul, a 7th century French priest, the one who hurries delays the things of God. Why did he say that? A good example of this is Abraham. What happened to Abraham? He was promised to have what? To have a son, right? To have a son. But what did he do? That promise did not come right away. What did he do? He took it in his own hands for that promise of God to be fulfilled, to come into reality. And what happened? He bore a son, Ismael, And what happened to the promise of God? The promise of God was delayed. So my dear brothers and sisters, going back to what Vincent Fall says, the one who hurries, delays the things of God. So if you want God's blessings to come upon you, if you pray something from God, you're asking something from God, and you believe that God is going to provide it to you, don't rush it, folks. Don't put things in your hands. Believe in God that it is going to come in His time. Right? You don't have to put it in your hands, that it will come through your own effort. No. It will come. It will come. That's why my last question to you folks. If we are followers of an unhurried Savior, what should our pace of life look like? What should be our pace of life look like? Let me say it again. Being busy itself is not bad, especially if you are doing things that matters. But even if you are doing great things and busyness becomes your way of life, that is when it becomes a problem. Getting things done, rushing, because you want to submit that paper in school, that report at your work, you're trying to accomplish that in a day. I don't see anything wrong with it. But what I'm talking about is the pathological busyness, when it becomes your way of life, when it becomes your normal. You're always on a rush. What happens? You forget to slow down. You forget to slow down. It's impossible for you to put into life the two great commandments, which is to love God and to love others. Because loving God and loving others takes time. It can only be expressed if you are moving slowly, like Jesus. If you are moving slowly, taking it one day at a time, and not rushing things out. When you slow down, you'll not only be able to express that love, you will also be able to hear His voice, that's sometimes talking to us in a still small voice. And not only that, you will be able to see His promises being fulfilled in your life. So my dear friends, just like what I said, all of us are guilty of this because of the world that you and I are living now. Fast pace. This is the culture in which you and I are living. God's call for us, in order for us to be able to hear Him, in order for us to be able to express that love and to be able to see those goodness that God is giving us, we have to slow down. Get rid of that hurry sickness. It should not be part of our life. It should not be part of life. Slow down and you will see God's blessing come your way. May God bless all of us today.